Okay, so for the last of our lectures on depressants, we'll be talking about inhalants. And here we're talking about products basically that contain inhalable solvents, things like gasoline, glue, lighter fluid, nail polish, those sorts of things. And the reason that we cover them in our lecture on depressants is because they have effects that are similar to alcohol and the other depressants that we've discussed so far. Some examples of specific drugs that we're talking about here include gaseous anesthetics, nitrites, and volatile solvents. So our gaseous anesthetics, this would include nitrous oxide or the laughing gas that you may receive at a dentist's office, anesthetics that are currently in use or perhaps former medical anesthetics as well. And then nitrites, isoamyl, isobutyl, known by the street names of locker room or poppers. And then our volatile solvents, things like gas, acetone, nail polish remover, toluene, the kind of household products that can be inhaled as well. And we'll start by talking about our gaseous anesthetics. So we first saw nitrous oxide or laughing gas being used for medical purposes in the early 1800s, and it is still currently in use, especially in dentist's office. And it's also used as a propellant for whipped cream dispensers. So that's the gas that's available in that type of canister. Now nitrites, their purpose is actually to relax blood vessels. And it's actually used as a treatment for cyanide poisoning to counter the effects of cyanide. And it increases blood flow and lowers blood pressure. Now, at higher doses, that's where we start to see the lightheadedness or faintness that may be associated with their use. And in 1988, the Anti-Drug Abuse Act listed several nitrites as controlled substances. And then our third and final category, volatile solvents. So this is the type of drug that your textbook used as an example of the drug du jour phenomenon, where we actually see the modern era of abusing solvents linked to that 1959 newspaper article that talked about abusing household solvents in this way. And basically the news coverage of the phenomenon demonstrated how those products could be abused. And they may actually have spread the abuse due to the increased publicity that they generated. And still, we tend to see abuse of these kinds of substances as local fads, and they tend to be among very young populations. 8% of 8th graders reported abuse of solvents last year, and 3.6% of 12th graders. So we see a much younger population than we do for other kinds of substance abuse. Despite the fact that it is typically young children who are abusing them, there are still quite a few serious risks for engaging in this behavior, including kidney damage, brain damage, damage to peripheral nerves, severe headaches, and then finally even death by suffocation. So one final depressant that I'd like to spend some time on, particularly with college-age students, is GHB. So GHB is a naturally occurring chemical that's already found in the brain and body. And its structure is very similar to the structure of GABA. So it ends up working just like that neurotransmitter and becomes a central nervous system depressant. And we see again, as with many depressants, those effects on behavior that are similar to alcohol. So GHB, we read about this for our discussion question, has been added to Schedule 1. And it's no longer prescribed for medical use except for one particular formulation. And that particular formulation is used for treatment of narcolepsy. And of course, this is one that's a particular concern for college-age populations because of its link to sexual assault. So if you have any questions about that, please feel free to post them in the content questions on the discussion board. And then as we wrap up today, we walked through several examples of depressant drugs and the kinds of behavioral effects we expect with them. We talked about how one of our earliest classes of barbiturate use and its concerns led to the development and acceptance of our newer classes such as BZDs and the Z drugs. We talked about how the time of onset for a depressant drug relates to its potential for abuse and how its duration of action relates to its risk of withdrawal symptoms. We walked through our 3 categories of substances that are typically abused as inhalants, and then we talked a bit about GHB and its effects and its effects also when combined with alcohol. Thanks for joining me for our lectures on depressants.